Hello, everybody. Good evening. Good evening. Well, first of all, thank you so much for joining. I'm going to give a couple of people just a couple of minutes, well, a few people, a couple of minutes to join in. That way they don't miss like the beginning part. So it's not going to be a long time, maybe 2 minutes, and they can just join in, just jump in when we start. So 6:32. We'll start at 6:32. I hope everybody is having a great evening thus far. I wish we could interact, but this is good. Feel free to say hi in the chat box if you can. Just say hi. At least let me know that you're there. How's everybody been doing? Everybody been staying safe in this crazy time of the coronavirus? Hopefully so. Hi, Kyra. How are you doing? All right, one more minute. We'll give a couple of people just in case they're having problems getting in. I'm doing well, Kyra. I have no complaints. I'm doing well. Hey, Lara. All right, it's 6:32. I think that's more than enough time. We'll just let them join in as they can. So let me move that just in case. All right. Hey, Marquita. All right, so I think most of y'all know me, but if you don't, my name is Attorney Tiffany Brown. I am an attorney. I'm based out of Tallahassee, Florida. I pretty much handle things in the state of Florida, obviously, because I can't go too far without being barred in a different state. But I want to first thank you so much for joining me today. I'm going to start off my presentation with being on camera. So I'll do my introduction. You'll see me here. And then once I actually get started, I have some slides for you just to follow along. And so you'll hear my voice, but you won't see my face. But just to know, I am smiling behind the camera or the presentation. And feel free, if you have any questions, to drop them in the chat box, and I promise I will answer them as thorough as I can. So I want to get started tonight by just explaining to you all my story and how I got started. I promise it won't be long. I won't bore you. In particular, I got into estate planning really once I started seeing the lack of knowledge that we have, and specifically within my family. So in particular, two things happened. My great grandparents, they own about 30 acres in Florida. And my family, they thought that everything was planned out. They thought that, my grandparents, they had a will and that everything would just transfer along. Well, come to find out, there was actually no plan in place. And these acres, luckily the family is still alive, like my grandma and her siblings, they're all still living. And so they have the opportunity to take care of that problem. But nonetheless, this could have been avoided. Well, now my family will have to go to court. This could have been avoided with just simply doing some planning. Okay. Fast forward to, most of you all know, I had a fun, loving 1-year-old son. And when I became pregnant, I had a whole bunch of emotions. But once I had him and I actually, was able to hold him, my thinking shifted immediately. And my thinking shifted to, okay, now I have to protect this little human being. And if something happened to me, something happened to his dad, who's going to take care of him? Who's going to step in and take care of him? And so, launch, here we go. This is what led me to kind of getting into trying to help families who are like mine, who are like me, and really want to protect their loved ones. And on top of that, just a few things that are different about my firm and what we call traditional planning. And I'll definitely delve into this a little bit more as we go along tonight. But when you do traditional planning, you essentially are doing form documents. You meet with an attorney, you pay them, they draft documents, and then you get those documents, you put them away, and you probably never look at them again. Well, things happen. You have other kids. You get some assets. You sell some assets, and so what usually happens is things end up being left out. And so same thing when we talk about our children, when not named guardians, and we're going to delve into that. So that is a little bit about me. I'm going to go ahead and start the presentation. And again, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat box. And one other thing, before I get away, hide my face. One other thing is throughout the presentation, I may mention a worksheet or a handout. I do have it uploaded, so I'm going to see if you're going to be able to access that. But if not, what I would encourage you to do is just grab a scratch sheet of paper, and I'm going to ask you to jot down some things along as we go. So just a notepad, it could be your phone, I guess, if you're on your phone watching this, but just in the note section, I just want you to be able to jot down some things. All right, are we ready? Let's get started. Oops, sorry. That was funny. All right. Just want to make sure. Perfect. Everybody can see my screen. Okay. So this is one of my favorite families, the Ellises. And just very briefly, I mean, I just want you guys to start thinking about your family. And as we go along tonight, I'm going to ask, and really in this next slide, I'm going to ask you some tough questions. So I'm going to try to make this subject light because it is tough for a lot of people when they think about, well, what will happen to our family? So brace yourself. Here's a tough question. This is my son, by the way, our son, his dad too. This is Taylin. And the tough question is, okay, so ask yourself tonight, deep breath, here we go. What would happen to your children if something happened to you tonight or yesterday? Does anyone have any idea? Have you even thought about that? You know, that thought of what will happen, who would care for your children if something happened to you? I know we can't physically raise your hand, but if you could maybe just maybe drop it in the chat box or something of that sort. So just to let me know we're on the same page. Oh, we can raise hands. Thank you. I saw that. So I'm with you. I'm right with you. You know, most people, they don't realize this, but there are actually two time frames that we have to think about when we consider what will happen to our children. And that is long term, of course, but then immediate. So that immediate time frame between maybe if you do have a guardian that's named, but that time frame in between of locating your guardian, locating who your guardian is, and then the time that it takes for that guardian to come and be with your child. And so most traditional estate plans, if you do work with the lawyer or if you handle it yourself online, they'll take care of the long-term issues, but then we have that gap of immediate. And so what usually happens is if you don't have that immediate guardian that's named, there could be some situations where your kid could possibly be taken into custody, you know, just DCF or CPS, whatever you call it, but just to ensure that your child is legally safe until that guardian could be contacted. So that's the tough question for tonight. Who would care for your children? So let's just delve right in. So the short term, are there times where you maybe are out with your loved one, you have a babysitter, and in this point, you may or may not have a plan. And this goes right along with what we talked about if your children are at home, for example, with a babysitter. I know back in the day, I don't know if they even still do this, but usually you leave your phone number, right? You would leave your phone number and have you tell the babysitter, hey, call me if something happens. Well, if something happened to you and the babysitter was trying to reach you, they wouldn't be able to, right? So there we have one problem. And so in that event, the police will then obviously try to make contact, and the babysitter is not going to be able to legally step in and keep your children because that is a liability risk for the police. And so in comes the state. They have to step in, try to find the next of kin, and then in the meantime, your kids go into protective custody. Or that sounds so weird, but not protective custody, but they'll go into custody like DCF or CPS. So I don't know what it's called where you are. And so I know this is one of the things as a mom personally that the thought of my son possibly, potentially, being taken into custody, simply because I did not have a plan in place, it really troubled me. And it's one of the things I know that I was really concerned about. And so I want to try to help you prevent that from happening. And we'll get into some specific steps that you can take to avoid that in just a few minutes. So just if you want to jot that down, maybe on your scratch sheet of paper. Okay. All right. And so if you don't have a plan in place, there is a plan, and it may be something that you don't like. And so we'll talk briefly just about the long-term care of your children if something were to happen to you. And I want to use a story to illustrate that. So there's a mother who is a parent of 2 children. She knew exactly who she wanted to have, I guess who she wanted to raise her kids if something happened to her. And so she didn't, in this case, didn't legally designate that person. And the 2 people that she probably had in mind were her sister and her sister-in-law. Her sister is 26 years old. She lives out in California, not married. She's never had children. She still parties, goes out. She's essentially kind of living her best life, right? That free lifestyle. Her sister-in-law, on the other hand, is 38 years old. She owns her own home. She has 3 children, and she has a steady job at the bank. And she also stays out, in California. And so just by the sounds of that, there's a judge, and I'm going to let you be the judge. Just really briefly, who do you think that the court will probably give guardianship to, the authority to raise the mom's children? Well, on paper, the sister-in-law sounds like the better option, right? I would say that's probably pretty obvious if you think about it. Well, mom said no. Mom said that's the last person that she wanted to raise her kids, and she would have preferred for her sister to raise her kids. But how is the court supposed to know that, right? The court doesn't necessarily know, who will step in or who is the best option. And so it's really easy to avoid this scenario. It's not one that we necessarily want to risk and have essentially, 2 family members fighting over whether they're going to be the best option to raise your children. And again, all of this could be avoided, by just, again, sitting down, taking some time and really thinking about these questions. So in the meantime, as we track on here, just on your scratch sheet of paper, if you are concerned about either or both of those issues, the short-term or long-term care of your kids and who would do that and take care of them, please just go ahead, jot down on your scratch sheet of paper, I need a kids protection plan, or you could put KPP, okay? Just take a minute. If that sounds like something that you may be interested in, just go ahead and jot that down. All right. So before we talk about what you can do to ensure that you do have adequate protection, or a kids protection plan, like I like to call it, in place to ensure that your kids are never taken into the care of strangers or anyone you wouldn't want for that matter. Let's talk very quickly about how they will receive your assets, okay, under your current plan, or if you don't have a current plan, under your state's plan. And of course, I can't get into specifics, but we'll just go off hypotheticals. All right, so first, if you have no estate plan, sorry about that noise. If you have no estate plan, the state does have a plan for you. And it's called, and I'm sure a lot of people know about it, or maybe you've heard about it, it's called probate. All right. And probate, I love the way that, this is put into perspective. But probate is essentially a lawsuit that you file against yourself with your own money for the benefit of your creditors. Okay. So it's basically you're paying, even though you may not be here, you're paying for this process to have your assets transferred to your heirs after you do pass away. If you do, well, when you do pass away, because we know that's going to happen, right? So one thing I do know about probate is it is slow. It is very slow, especially depending on trying to locate people, how much assets you have. It could be slow. I know in Florida here, and I know some people may not be in Florida with me, but in Florida, I've seen cases take anywhere between 8 months to years. And that's a long time. And that's a long time that, your family may not have access to those assets. It's also, it could be very costly. Obviously, there will be attorney's fees, executors' fees, appraisers' fees, court filing fees, bond premiums, and creditors' claims. And so, again, it could get very costly. And I want to just kind of paint this put this into perspective again for you. In a probate case, for example, with one piece of property that's valued out at $1 million, okay, the attorney's fees alone could almost be $30,000 just for that one piece of property. I know that's very outlandish. I know most of us, we don't have $1 million properties, but I feel like if we can put that into perspective, $30,000, okay, $22,000 of those were statutory fees. And I know in Florida, there are Florida law that allows attorneys to basically get a certain amount of money depending on how much the estate is worth. And so, again, these fees could have been avoided with just a few $1,000s spent on a basic foundational estate plan. And again, you'll have a chance. All right, I think I'm back. Can everybody hear me? Sorry about that. My sound left for some reason. Okay. Oh no. We started all over. All right. Wow, look at that. Adversity at its best. Okay. Sorry. Okay, we're talking about Anna Nicole and our public. But one other thing about probate is, here's my son again. He's a baby now, but soon he's going to be 18. And when he turns 18, say for example, if something happened to me, oh goodness, okay, if something happened to me, and I do have insurance, he could possibly receive a large amount of monies outright without any restriction at the age of 18. And so I think back to when I was 18, as an 18-year-old, and I challenge you to think back too. I'm sure my spending habits were awful. I didn't have a clear direction of where I wanted to go. My mentality was different, and I possibly would not have graduated from college until later. I may not, if that's in the I guess if that's one of the things that you may be interested in, or you think your child may be interested in, they might not even seek that with receiving a large amount of money outright at the age of 18. And so that's another thing when we talk about not planning, right? All right. So the fun part, again, just pull out that scratch sheet of paper and let's go ahead and let's calculate just an example of your probate estate. So I just use a fair market value here, and I tried to make it very modest because I want you all to be able to relate to this. And one thing I want to say is this is not for wealthy, right? This is not only for wealthy people. And so that was my goal here. So for example, just go ahead and jot down the fair market value of your home if you own one. If you have any rental property, you can put that in there. If you have any stocks or bonds or monies in the bank account, savings, put that in there. And the amount of insurance that is payable to your beneficiary. So for example, if you take out an insurance policy and it is for $600,000, you're going to put that $600,000 amount in there. Okay. And so the easy way, and I think, yeah, I think that's right. The easy way for me to do this is to take that total amount. You're going to calculate it, put it in the calculator, and you're going to multiply it by 3%. And so that would be your fees that you would pay in the event that you go to probate. And so in this case, that is an amount of $15,000, $15,000 plus, because that doesn't count attorney's fees. And so how many of you know you want to avoid probate altogether? If that sounds like something you might be interested in, raise your hand with me, because that is something that I know I thought about. Yeah, I see a couple of hands. Great. So, and here's the good news. Probate is totally voluntary. The only people who have to experience it are those who don't plan, or maybe those who plan and their plan has holes in them. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. So if probate or avoiding probate is an issue that, kind of stays with you, I would encourage you to jot that down on that scratch sheet of paper and just, hold on to that. Okay. And you can just put avoid probate, or I want to avoid probate, or you can just put probate. All right. So let's talk about the way to avoid probate. And the only foolproof way to avoid it is to have a fully funded trust and a living trust. Okay. So just having a living trust is not enough. It must be fully funded. And I'll talk about that. I know that you may be thinking, what in the heck is fully funded? And it's a legal term of art. It's lawyers, of course, how sometimes we like to get. And so let's take an example about, let's take a look at what I mean when I say fully funded. All right. And I'm going to use another example, and hopefully this will help paint the picture for you. So Trina is a law student. And while she was in law school, she lost her father-in-law. And her family was left having to deal with the probate court. Well, Trina remembered, and she began wondering, why did her family have to, go through probate? Because she knew that her father-in-law actually went to see a lawyer, sat down with a lawyer, and he created a trust. Well, Trina, of course, being that curious law student, she was going through the binder. She saw a letter from the attorney that her father went to go see. And in that letter, I guess on that letter, it said, "Congratulations on your estate plan. Now, don't forget to move your assets into your trust." Well, Trina's in-laws, they had never done that, right? So they probably just saw that letter. Maybe they didn't even read it. They thought that everything was complete, put the plan away, never looked at it again. And I'm sure, they didn't do it on purpose, but maybe they were just too busy. And it could have been just a lack of knowledge, or the attorney not necessarily explaining to Trina's family about what to do next. And so at the time, Trina, she's a law student, so she most definitely thought that this was malpractice. And when she became a lawyer, she was practicing in this area, and what she saw was that this was normal. This was pretty much a normal course of action for estate planning attorneys. And what she saw, of course, was that the assets were never transferred, and what her father-in-law wanted to prevent, which was having his family go through court, they were right in court, going through the very thing that her father-in-law was trying to prevent. And so this may sound, I don't know if it sounds like crazy, but it happens all the time. And so each and every asset you have, it has to be owned in the name of your trust. And so this would include your bank accounts, if you have any investment accounts, or if you have on your insurance policy, right? Changing your beneficiaries to be named in your trust. If you own any property, those are the things that we need to make sure are transferred, in the name of your trust. So it is fully funding your trust. And that's what I mean by fully funding. And so one thing is, this can't be done once, right? And never looked at again, because things change. You have more children, you gain more assets. Maybe you pick up some investment accounts, right? We have to allow our plans to grow with us. And I do have, and I guess one thing I'm going to throw out there that makes my firm different is I have a membership. And in that gold membership, we review with you each year or every 3 years to make sure that your assets everything is still in alignment, right? That we're not missing any assets. So you will have a plan that will work if something does happen to you, and when you do eventually pass away. And so if that, again, sounds like something that you may be concerned about, when I talk about just staying out of court, making sure that your assets are properly titled, or if you do have a trust and your assets are not properly titled, I encourage you to just jot that down on your scratch sheet of paper. And again, you can use just, you want to avoid probate. Okay. And we'll touch on that again shortly, but before we do, just in case I have some high dollar, and I'm sorry, I should have let you see that. But we just talked about that, right? Just a way to fully fund your trust. And just in case I do have some high dollar listeners out there, most of us, we won't be affected by this estate tax, but if you do, I think currently right now, the estate tax, federal estate tax, is, if your estate is worth, I believe it's 11 million, I think it's 11.58 if I'm not mistaken. And so if your estate basically is worth that much, the government takes 40% of it. And off of this amount, you see 14.5 million, that is $5.8 million in estate taxes. 5.8. That, to me, that's a lot. if we ever get there, right? So just throwing that out there because that is crazy. All right, next I want to just touch on losing your assets to the state. And what happens here is I talked about having your trust fully funded, making sure that we capture all of the assets that we have, right? In the event that we don't, in the event that we forget assets, and usually this happens, families just don't know what their family member actually has. You know, they just, sometimes you just don't know. And so what happens is the assets are usually transferred to your State Department, and it's called unclaimed property. And there currently right now is approximately $58 billion worth of assets in the United States in the various State Department of unclaimed properties. And in the state of Florida, for all my Floridians, currently there's $2 billion in the State Department of unclaimed property. And I encourage you, if you don't live in the state of Florida, just to Google what's in your unclaimed property, or in the State Department of unclaimed property. I encourage you just to look it up, just to see, just for learning purposes, right? Because again, we don't know what we don't know. And this is why we start off all of our planning processes with a life and legacy planning session. And in that life and legacy planning session, you'll be able to become more organized. You'll be able to see the assets that you do have. And so if you were to become incapacitated, right, or if you were to pass away, your family will be able to know what are the assets that you have, and you'll be able to prevent assets being lost to the state, right, as we just talked about. And so if this is, again, something that you may be interested in, and I hope you can feel my smile behind that, just jot down on your scratch sheet of paper, right, that you want to avoid loss of assets. Okay, loss of assets to the State Department. All right. Oh, I think my, all right, I was like, I think my computer is moving slow. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. All right. And so one thing, and this may get a little grim, but I want to be able to paint this into a reality, because this, you know, could potentially, we just never know, right? And I think we rather plan, and at least we have a plan. So everybody, if you remember Terri Schiavo, this was a young woman who, she was young too, I think 26 or something like that, but she suffered I believe it was a rare cardiorespiratory attack, and it left her pretty much brain dead. She was still alive. I believe she was on ventilators. And what happened was her family were in a dispute. They actually had to go to court because they couldn't decide between her family, her parents, and her husband. They couldn't decide what they, you know, wanted to do as far as, and I think in this case, it didn't necessarily have anything to do with removing the respirators or the ventilators, but I think it had more to do with whether to remove the hydration in her nutrition. And so her family members were fighting over this. Meanwhile, Terri's, you know, she's there, she can't really do much for herself. And I'm sure that's not something that we would want our families to be fighting over, you know, decisions. And so all this could have been avoided. The court process, the fighting, again, could have been avoided by doing some type of planning. And what's a little bit different between, again, the way that I approach planning in most traditional firms is we cover HIPAA. Okay, so in HIPAA, and I'm sure most of you all know what HIPAA is, but so your family member, whoever you decide you want to have authority to receive your medical information in case something happened to you, they're able to receive that information. As well as if you have any type of strong desires, right? So if you're gluten free, if you like the holistic approach of I guess medical attention. Those are things that could be very well included in your plan, and should be, especially when we're talking about what to do for us and also our children, right? So again, if you are at all concerned about who will make the decisions for you, or you want certain things to be taken into consideration, go ahead, jot that down on your scratch sheet of paper. You could put, I need to plan for my own care, or health care, or something like that. All right. So everybody's still in there? We still hanging in there? I know I want to give you so much information. Just, I don't know, give me a thumbs up, making sure we're still there. All right. All right, we're almost through. So the most important part, I know why we all came today, and all of these things kind of go together, is, I think, in my opinion anyway. So let's take a look at the 9 steps that you can take today for absolutely peace of mind, knowing that your kids will be taken care of if anything happened to you. All right. And again, this is something I know for myself. It definitely just, it made me think, like, okay, I need to make sure that my kids are taken care of, right? So I'm going to breeze through these 9 easy steps, and we call this the Kids Protection Plan. All right, first step, choose the right long-term guardians. And we want to use a non-emotional step process. And that process really entails removing the emotions around finances. So removing the concern about who's going to be able financially anyway to take care of your child, but more so focus on who would be most closely aligned to raise your kids the way that you raise your kids, right? The things that you take into consideration or you find most important, you want to think about, start thinking about people who you feel will closely align to that. All right. And then after that, you want to legally document your choice. Okay. So after we talk about long-term care, but if we don't jot it down, then who's going to know about it, right? Step 3 would be choose the right short-term guardian. And these are people, local friends or family, or, church members. If you're in a mom's club and something of that sort, you want somebody that's close to you. So for my people who maybe have their family members who live out of state, and maybe that is who you name as your guardian. Well, we're going to have that issue that I talked about earlier of that lag, right? That in between, that temporary break in between who's going to care for your kids while the authorities reach your guardian. So you want to have some local friends or family or church members within 20 minutes who can jump in right away once they get that call, that, if something were to happen to you, right? And then, of course, we want to legally document our choice. So again, if we don't document it, who's going to know, right? Nobody, they're not mind readers. So we have to make sure that we do that. And then next, step 5 would be to give both your short-term and your long-term. This probably is my next one, but you want to make sure that we give them full documentation and also instructions. And so this could include so much. It could include if you want to have your kids remain in private school, right? If you want to have them remain in sports, if you want, them to take a trip every year, things that are important to you, you'll be able to fully detail instructions for your guardian. So, and I think, when I think about this, it's really just about that transition. So my kid can feel as comfortable as possible with their guardian, and their life is very similarly aligned to the life that you were giving them, right, as their parent. Okay. So you'll be able to really fully detail and provide your guardians instructions. And then step 6, you want to give all of the caregivers, everyone who has some type of interaction with your kids, instructions. And you want to lay out who they need to call, who they need to make contact with, And then also what comes with our KPP, our Kids Protection Plan, you'll have basically like just like your driver's license, right? But it'll be a family emergency ID. And so authorities will be able to actually put their hands on this document or this little card, and so they'll know who to contact, right? So we're not fishing out or trying to find where is the wheel. We don't have the password to the safe to get into, to get into the safe to get that wheel. And so you'll be able to carry this little ID card around. That way, everybody will know what to do. It'll be seamless. It'll kind of, I guess what I'll say, take away some of that traumatization that your kids are definitely going to go through, right? And then number 7, you'll tell your long-term guardians, you'll be able to inform them of what to do, where to find your documents. Again, you'll leave them with specific instructions, again, values, insights, stories, things that you want to share with your kids if something were to happen to you. They'll be able to have access to that. And so, in my opinion, it'll allow your children to still be connected with you, right? And I think that's so important. At least, again, this is my opinion, but maybe you agree with me on that. All right. And then step 8, you'll be sure to exclude anyone you would never want raising your kids, so they can never challenge your decision. And so this is huge, right? You may have a family member, and it may be an immediate family member, right? It may be a grandmother, it may be an aunt, it may be a sibling that that regardless of how much they may have going for themselves, maybe they just don't align with how you raise your kids, right? And that that's somebody that you would never want your children to be raised by. Well, in the Kids Protection Plan, you'll be able to draft that. We'll be able to clearly lay that out. And the good thing about this is it's confidential. The only time that it will come out is if there was somebody trying to challenge your named guardian, and say, for example, they did file a petition for guardianship, but your guardian that you did name will be able to pull this document out, and it'll be as if you are speaking to the court saying, no, 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 I have my reasons. These are my reasons. I named this guardian for a reason, and I wholeheartedly, I do not want this person to obtain guardianship over my kids. And the other good thing is, if they don't challenge it, they will never know. They'll never know that this document exists, right? So it's completely confidential. It only comes out when it is absolutely necessary. So that's a cool little tool. But again, it ensures that your kids are being raised by the people that you want, right? And then number 9, I talked about those finances, but through the KPP, in step 9 for sure, we'll be able to provide enough financial resources through insurance. So if you don't have assets, right? I know some people may have I don't have any assets. What am I going to give to my kids? Well, insurance is a great tool for that. It costs little to nothing per month. And then you'll be able to make sure that you're funding your trust, like we talked about earlier, and that your kids are adequately taken care of, right? And that you remove that burden off of your guardian, your named guardian. You remove that burden off of them, and their sole focus is to raise your kids how you would want your kids to be raised, right? And the finances come from steps that you took, being that great parent that you are, but steps that you took to protect your kids and make sure that they are taken care of. And also, with the trust, you'll be able to make sure that inheritance that your kids will eventually get is protected, right? All right, I know I said a mouthful. So, are we still there? Everybody still there? All right, great. Okay, so what can you do today to do the right thing for your family, and what should it cost to plan right? I know that's like a burning question. I know when I'm going through presentations and good information, I'm like, all right, I hear you, but what is this going to cost, right? So a couple of options that you have. I lost my arrow here. Okay, a couple of options that you have. You have the do-it-yourself option, right, where you can go to I think LegalZoom or something, Google, and try to do it yourself, or you can work with a lawyer, right? And what I want to caution you is that not all lawyers are the same. And so let's look at some differences. And I know I've touched on them before. So how do you choose? Okay, so would you benefit from working with a lawyer? And I think this is some of the ways that you can answer those questions. All right. So first thing you can ask is, do you own more than just your personal belongings, right? Such as cars, clothing, jewelry, furnishings. Do you own more than that? Do you want to ensure that the people you love stay out of court and out of conflict, and you have someone to turn to when something happens to you, and someone being an attorney, right? Or does your scratch sheet of paper, I put worksheet here, but does your scratch sheet of paper, does it indicate that you need a kids protection plan to avoid probate or estate taxes, or to protect your children's inheritance, or to make sure that you have the appropriate guardian's name, right? That's completely important. Or you want to guarantee that your plan will work when your family needs it. So think about that. Are those some things that you may be interested in? And answering those questions to help you, I guess, learn if working with an attorney to have all these things matter. Is that an option for you? And so I do want to tell you here at TNB Law, that's me, that's my law firm. My focus is on helping you make great lifetime decisions rather than putting in a place a set of documents, right, for once that you'll probably never look at again. So my goal is to grow with you, right, to have a plan that grows with you, and to avoid maybe having a plan that doesn't work for your family when they need it the most. I truly believe I really only try to work with people who want that peace of mind, knowing that they have somewhere to turn throughout life, right? Knowing that they also have a plan in place that's going to work. And so, again, I just want to lay out for you the typical experience that you get when you go and work with traditional estate planning attorneys. I call it planning for death. That is essentially what it is. I mean, usually we go when we get a little bit older. We only think that elders need it. The typical experience pretty much stems around getting form documents. You set it up, they hand it to you, you forget about it, right? You put it in your safe, and then we only pull it out when something happens. You may avoid probate, but you may not. So then you find yourself in court spending more money, possibly having family conflict. It only focuses on the money, transferring those assets that you earn, that you earn through your lifetime, not your stories. Possibly leave assets to heirs unprotected. There's no ongoing legal guidance, hourly fees, so it drains your estate. And then I think most importantly, of course, and why we're here, is it doesn't necessarily adequately protect your kids, right? It doesn't fully protect your children and when you need it. So the question is, if you work with a traditional estate planning attorney, will that plan work when you need it most? So what's different over here at TNB Law? We plan for life, right? We are planning for life. It's a completely different experience. All flat fees. And I think the coolest part about this is my goal is to empower you. And so I don't set the fee, you choose the fee. You're the one who, based on what you need, that the fee is in your hands, right? It keeps the money out of hands of the state, so you don't lose assets. Of course, we protect our kids totally, so we have that immediate and that long-term guardian name. You keep your family out of court, out of conflict, if that's the plan that you choose. You feel comfortable and empowered knowing that you've made the right decisions. Protect your money from outsiders. Protect your money from lawsuits, from divorce. And then I think another cool thing is this is a lifetime of guidance and protection. So I'm here with your family so long as I'm still on this earth. I'm here with your family if something were to happen to you, right? Guiding them through, helping them, making it easy for them. And so your plan will work when your family needs it most. And it's a gift. It's a gift for the people that you love the most. All right, the burning question. What will it cost? What should it cost? I'm going to get through this because just in case we have some questions. And so just to kind of give you an idea, say for example, if you only had a house that was worth $400,000, right? The planning will save your family at least $20,000. Or say for example, if you had only a house that was worth $200,000, we're looking at a savings of $10,000. Or again, I want to hit all levels, right? So if you have a house that's just $100,000, you're looking at a potential saving of about $5,000. And so my plans, they start at $1,500, and there's a range, and this is solely dependent upon the options that you feel is best for your family. I don't make the decision is yours. So you're intentional about creating a plan that works for your family. All right, and I want to make this easy for you. So just for attending tonight, and once I send you that worksheet, if you just, transfer over, essentially that's what you're going to do. All of the notes that you took on your scratch sheet of paper, just transfer that over to the sheet that I'll send you out. Send it, and you'll send it back in. It'll be electronic, super easy. I'll give you $750 off of your planning session. Okay, usually it's $750. We hold it with a credit card, reserve it with a credit card, just like a hotel. And once you turn that in, you'll definitely get $750 waived. My second gift, and I think most important, if you do reserve your appointment today, and your appointment is only the planning session, so we can go, you'll come in and we'll go over your assets. Then I'll give you a certificate, or you'll receive a certificate for $1,000 off any estate planning option that you choose. Okay, so 2 gifts. So you'll potentially get a savings of $1,750 just because you wanted to protect your family. So here are the next steps I encourage you to complete. I'll send that worksheet out to you. And if you want, just send it back and you'll get your $750 certificate. And then schedule your free, because it will be free because you'll send that worksheet back to me. Go ahead and schedule that. You can go to my website. It's TiffanyBrownLaw.com. And most of you all know Tiffany is Tiffani, brownlaw.com. Go ahead, schedule your planning session with me, and then we'll come in. And if you feel like we are a good fit, of course, you'll get your $1,000 off of any plan that you take. All right, so everybody got that? That's the end of my presentation. I hope you guys learned something. Again, I know this was, and I'm gonna go back on video, so I'll stop sharing. Hi, I'm back. I know this was something that was super important to me, so I'm gonna open it up to any questions that anybody may or may not have. I'll stay on as long as I can to answer them. Thank you to my mom because she's watching my son. So if anybody have any questions, feel free to drop them. Oh, okay. I'm sorry, Miss Maynard. I was having technical difficulties today. I didn't have any on my last one. So thank you so much for bearing with me. All right. Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? Feel free to drop them in. Again, so I invite you all to just check out my website. Really just think about the things that we talked about. Again, I really hope that you learned something. And it just, if anything, just kind of got your mind thinking around well, what will happen and what do I need to do to make sure that my family, my loved ones are taken care of. All right. If you live in Georgia, the question, I'm sorry, I hope I can read these out loud. I guess everybody can see them. Okay, so if you live in Georgia, you have to use an attorney barred in that state. Yes. If you do, because I do know I have some people who are residing in Georgia, feel free to just shoot me an email and let me know that you want to find an attorney with the same values that we talked about today. You know, that, like we said, that planning for life, that viewpoint. Let me know, and I have we have a robust list of attorneys that I can hook you up with up there, and they'll be able to assist you just the same way that we talked about. So yes, I'm not barred in Georgia yet, but I might consider it. I might consider it. All right. Thank you, Marquita. Yes, very informative. Great. Yeah, okay. So if you miss any info in the beginning, actually what I'll do, because this is recorded, I'll send you the link. So I'll send out an email maybe a few days later, and that way you'll be able to just go back and look into it. And of course, if you have any questions, and this is for everybody, if you have any questions, please feel free to email me. I will answer them. It may take a day or two, but I promise I'll answer it. Great. I'm glad you all got good information out of that. All right. Anything else? Thank you, Miss Maynard. I keep saying Miss Maynard because I don't want to say your name wrong. Sanaya. Okay. If I said it wrong, please forgive me. All right. Any questions? Yay, I got it. It's the small victories I get excited about. All right, great. Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Good info. Thank you. Yes, I know. Me either, right? And surprisingly, I actually thoroughly enjoyed doing this in law school, but I shied away from it. But I think it's my calling to help families out. So here we are. Okay. Yes. All right. I'll do more webinars. I got the push. All right. Any more questions? Great information. Thank you, Lena. Thanks for coming on, sis. And I saw your answer too. But we can talk about that later. About your son's father would step in. Okay. Hey, Brandy. I hope you're well. Thank you so much for tuning in. Great. I'm glad it was informative, necessary. All right, Marquita, I'll send you the link. Wait, are you talking about the link for the review, or well, just text me. Let me know. All right. So if we don't have any more questions, I'll hang out until 7:30 just in case something pops up. But feel free to log off. Have a good night. I hope everyone stays safe in this crazy time with the pandemic and everything. Please, oh, I forgot to say one thing. If you feel like you know somebody who could benefit from this information, or you feel like they need to hear it, please feel free to share it with them, because I know it's just a lack of, we just don't know, and so please feel free to share it. All right, thank y'all. I appreciate it. We need to get some men on here. They need to learn about this information. All right, I'll go ahead and end it. I'm just talking to myself now. See y'all later. Have a good night. Thanks again for tuning in. Oh, a question. I'm here. So I'm not married, and my daughter's father has no rights. He's not legitimized and has not signed a birth certificate, and she is 5. Okay. Ooh, let's talk about that. Well, yeah, let's talk about it. Okay. Yes. So how do I do this? Oh, yeah, great. Oh, yeah. Kyra, so that's a great question. So technically, right, dad doesn't have any rights. And my encouragement would be, and I can shoot you the link as well. You can take the first step by just naming guardians. So you can ensure, like, if something happened to you, you'll be able to dictate, even in succession, right? So you'll be able to name who you want the first person to be. And if they can't serve, then the next person. And if they can't serve, right? Or if they're married and you only want them to serve together, um, you can definitely control that. And I don't know what your financial, what the asset overview, what that looks like. But I would definitely encourage you to sit down, and just, it again, it doesn't hurt anything. If anything, you'll get an overview, a kind of idea of what will happen. And if that is not the day for you to plan, then you can always come back. But I would most definitely encourage you, because usually what happens, right? And just to be transparent, right? If something happened to me, then they're gonna go and find dad, right? But in this case, like yours, okay, so who will they go to next? And you have that lag that I talked about before, about who's gonna be the temporary guardian, who's gonna step in. Like, there's a potential for your daughter to go into custody until they reach the next of kin, right? So yeah, I definitely encourage you. But yeah, I'll send you some information if you want to. You can shoot me an email. Just, well, I think I have your information if you registered, which you did, obviously. But I'll shoot you over a link, and also an attorney that's like-minded, that's on this same wave of new planning. And you can schedule an appointment with them. I hope that helps. Yeah, absolutely. I will, for sure. Yep, I will. Good question. Thanks. That was great. Thanks. I get so excited about this stuff. I'm such a nerd sometimes. All right. Yeah. Tell me about it. I know. And I'm telling you, I know we're talking through chat, but I honestly, I did not. It's like I thought about this, obviously, because I learned it in law school and it was one of my best classes. Like, it just clicked for me. But in law school, it was really just about, oh well, the will was because of fraud. It didn't necessarily talk about planning to protect. So once I had my son, like, my whole mentality changed. So yeah, it's great. Yeah, no problem. My pleasure. My pleasure. So okay, I'll send you that information. I'm gonna make a note. All right, I still see 4 people on. Is it me plus somebody? Any other questions? Have a great night. You too. I'm writing down now to send you that information. All right. If not, thanks again so much for tuning in. Oh, okay. It's just me. All right. See y'all later. Have a good night. Is this this is funny because I don't know how to end it. I know. I want you to stop. Oh, here we go. I'm literally having a brain fart.